I'm really thrilled to be announcing Shu Lea Cheang, who's an artist and filmmaker. Chang constructs networked installation and multiplayer performance in participatory impromptu mode. She drafts sci-fi narratives in her film scenario and artwork imagination. She builds social interface with transgressive plots and open networks that permit public participation. Her genre-bending gender-hacking art practices challenge the existing operating mechanisms and the imposed boundaries of society, geography, politics, and economic structures. As a net art pioneer, Brandon, 1998 to 1999, was the first work of web art commissioned and collected by the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York. She crafts her own genre of new queer sci-fi cinema with her feature-length films Fresh Kill, 1994, IKU, 2000, and Fluido, 2017. From homesteading cyberspace in the 90s to her current retreat to post-net crash bio-net zone, Chang takes on viral love, biohacking in her current cycle of works. She represented Taiwan with a 3x3 by 6 with 3x3 by 6, a mixed media installation at the Venice Biennale in 2019, and she is currently working on Yuki, an interruptive cinema work, as well as Unborn '09, a hacking performance with future baby production. She's going to talk about those in just a minute, so I'll turn it over to Shu Lea.
Hello, Great Area Festival people. Today, I'm going to introduce two projects I'm currently working on. These are the two projects, two landscape and two state of mind. One is called Cycle X, which is a green project located in Andes, New York, upstate New York, at Catskill area. This is a project I co-funded with several of my feature film Fresh Kill producers for several years now. And we are actually starting to work on it and hoping to nurture the future farmers. There are many project initiatives going on at the moment, including living architecture, making a vertical garden, starting a bee camp in the summer. So it's a very open, free-form laboratory where we are actually pretty much testing the food and medicine with different vegetable and growth. Another project is my long-term project since 2009. At the moment, it's been developed into a feature-length film called Yuki, which is a sci-fi viral or reality cinema, where I'm working with the Yuki, the virus, as infiltrating agents to sabotage genome cooperation. This involved many 3D effects, 3D engineering, involved also a lot of plot the plot is set in 3D constructed sets that include e-trash bill, blood cell vessels, and infected city. I'm just going to kind of show and tell and do some picture sharing with you. So here, as we see, one is of vegetable growing, and one is in the blood cells that had the bionet, totally sci-fi, with a DNA reconstruct, re-engineering. To know more about the project, it's really about who lives here, those inhabitants who lives here. So at Cycle X, you see wildflowers, you see mushroom growing on the trees, you see a kind of garden that is totally not so organized in a way, but actually very organized. We also welcome different artists to put their sculpture here. This is actually a sculpture that sprouts, that actually the water can come out from the sculpture and water the garden. There's many different kind of vegetable being grown. However, it doesn't seem to have an organized lot. So this is actually saffron by Andy, and these are the sprouts of the garlic. So of course the project also started with when I was working on the project called Garlic Eco-Rich Air back in 2002 in New York City with Creative Time. And the farm is now kind of still have the garlic grows. I'm working with Rhizome.org in New York. We continue to cultivate garlic here, and the project would be called Garlic Equal Rich Air, and it seemed to be keep going. And in the summer, this summer we started a geek camp. We invite 6 artists to come, which are having a more of a biodiversity focused artists that focus on research in biotech, biodiversity, and the project Geekan will be shown at the Queen's Museum later in October as a collective art project. So to come back to Yuki, then we have, again, we have inhabitants in Yuki. But maybe I would show you the landscape of Yuki first, which will be a 3D constructed set of e-Trashville. This is a very quick browsing through the landscape. So actually, I think there is a green and there is green. So at the e-Trashville, you would have toxic green. This is a toxic cow and toxic people. However, this project actually also it started development in 2009 when I did a residency at Hanga Media Lab in Barcelona. The project Yuki is actually the name of the virus. The plot is a bit complicated. Maybe I didn't have time to get into it here now. However, the project since its development in 2009 had gone through several different kind of process, including being a live cinema performance, being a video game, or more like a viral game, I called it, with the biosensors and basically, it also involved a big corporation, Bionet, who are actually making a bionet inside human body, inside the occupied human body. As a sci-fi, I'm free to do anything, of course. So I want to introduce it's really, at the moment, I'm supposed to be in 3D production at the moment, remotely, and very small scalely. We are working on the laptop remote. So these are the characters, avatars I'm creating for the e-Trashville. That's gonna be 22 avatars or 22 characters. So these are all gender fluid, human, non-human, nurse, geese, transmutants, and beyond, microbes, variants. At the end is very virus related. Just to get close up on a few characters. This is, for example, this is which one is this? This is one of the characters, cosmonauts. One of the characters of cosmonauts. Another character is also cosmonauts. As you can see, these inhabitants on the e-Trashville actually dress with all the e-trash that they can find. There's also the ozone characters who rise on, who actually rise on a roller skate. So kind of travel with the roller skates, and again is they also wear these goggles that is just make up of the first generation of iPhone. So again, it's a sci-fi movie, so I can do everything. Here is Alba, who is a human trapped in a jellyfish. So we are developing this whole animation, for example. But again, you know, all these are almost like the first beginning of the production. So we, throughout the process, we should be making more of the adjustment or making it better. So it's It's just a really long process, and this is the first time I'm actually showing these avatars as work in progress in gray area platform. For me, it's a long process to make this film. A concept started from 2009, and I'm currently in production 3D. And next year, I will do the film production in Berlin. The film contains like 3D trash wheel, and there's also infected city, and there's also the Ganos bionet. So a lot of different animation. I just want to talk about the reason I decided to present these two particular projects of that I'm currently very engaged in, and to actually present two different landscape, two kinds of green, the toxic green and the natural green. Pretty much after the COVID time, as we know, or we are still in the COVID time, we're still in this very prolonged pandemic. Of course, there is a call to go back to nature, a call to go back to the farm. We started at Cycle X, we actually started this process of regeneration and recovery. So it's almost like we have to rebuild our community to bring people to come and to farm together, and to not only farm the usual sort of sustenance, but actually taking the farming as the next step of consider food can be the medicine, consider food can cure, and food can bring us together, back together to be grounded on the greenland, right? As for Yuki, of course, it is about the kind of state that we are in. What I say, you and I don't live in the same bioreality, but we are in this bioreality that we don't know how to get out of. So the virus is gonna keep mutating. It's gonna live with us, and there is probably the only way out is for us to become virus then, right? So virus becoming. I have since 2009 calling my work as biohack and biolove, and all these kind of work is again is sort of counter the corporation's control of our body data, the corporation control of various various body control. I think the biotechnology that is currently development is going to change the whole biosphere of our bodies, of the nature and everything. So we have to put into alert to this situation. Again, so I guess it's okay for me to do these two parallel work in terms of engage myself with a group of farmers, and engage myself with the avatars, with transmutants, human, non-human. Sometimes it does drive me crazy, so kind of feel like, wow, which world am I in? Like, how do we actually traverse these two lands? But I thought the gray area, the theme of the gray area of the wording protocol this year is very suitable for me to present these two completely different projects, but definitely not contradiction, not in contradiction, because I think we need both, right? We need to push ourselves into a different landscape, into finding a different solution, and at the same time, being grounded is also super important. Again, is about the protocols, right? So if how do we figure out to navigate our lives now? How do we figure out what is the portal to take us to the next world? So there's a lot of these kind of thinking in my head all the time, and I'm glad to have this chance to present it here. I'm gonna show a very short clip of Yuki Virus Rising as a 3-channel installation that's currently on view at Hammer Museum. until January 2021 Hammer Museum in Los Angeles. So if you happen to go down to Hammer Museum, the piece is called Yuki Virus Rising in the 3-channel installation. I'm going to show a little clips of the documentation. Yeah. Okay, so this ends my talk for today. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm super excited to be joined here by Shu Lea Cheang, who we just heard a little bit from about her work Yuki and Cycle X in upstate New York. Welcome, Shu Lea.
Very happy to be here.
Awesome. I think you laid out really well these projects, and we saw, some little pieces from them. But I'd like to, just start out on a broader level, just about your practice in general and how you approach this idea of world building in your work. What's kind of the first step, and how do you start to conceive of these expansive alternate realities?
For the movie making, the Yuki project, actually, it was in the beginning was like conceived as a sequel to my previous film IKU, which was made in 2000. So Yuki was conceived in 2009 when I was doing an artist in residency at Hanga in Barcelona. So at that time, I didn't think I would particularly go into this direction of virtual reality or 3D construction or the landscape. But it's been such a long process of trying to make this movie. And in the beginning, I was only making more like a live performance as a game, but then finally to conceive as a feature film. And so in the process, there's technical change. I got involved more into using the game engine Unity. So at the moment, I'm constructing maybe 60% of the film will be constructed on Unity and also with avatar building. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, the worlds that you construct are so rich, and most of them are rooted in the ethos of cyberpunk, of hacking, of cypherpunk as well. And so I want to know a little bit more about how those ideas or those philosophies influence you, and then how they manifest through your artwork.
Yeah, in a certain way, I think I'm kind of drifting away from the reality more and more, or in a way, at the same time, is a response to reality, But the reality is sometimes so harsh, and so try to find a different way to debate it in a way. I think my work is grounded in the reality, social reality, political, economic reality. I think I am making certain comment. For example, Yuki at the end is really bring out the corporation working with biotechnology. The current biotech development and maybe taking on a different direction that we don't know, and also usually the pharmaceuticals involvement in designing our drugs, right? So these are all part of the reality that I'm dealing with.
Wow. This, how do your work almost feels in a lot of ways like a cautionary tale, like you're warning the world against something that could go awry very quickly. And I've always really been inspired by work that employs practices of simulation to do this, because as much as we can simulate possibilities, we can also simulate negative possibilities and kind of learn from what could kind of go off course. And I'm wondering, how you think about simulation and think about simulation as a technique in these fantastic alternate realities that you're constructing?
I need to do that. For example, the landscape, the electronic trash landscape was based on the study. I went to Africa. I was in Nigeria. Really have the bit of first-hand experience of how people are, the African people are taking in all the e-trash from the developed country, and how that had to be processed, managing to get some coppers out of it for sale, for, so that's a whole sort of economic situation also in this way. In the process of digging into the reality, and kind of dropping the documentary way of constructing the reality, then it's only way it would be going for these more hyper reality, I guess. Yeah.
Hyperreality is something that I've been thinking about a lot too recently, and I mean, it just feels so like pressing, in current years. I mean, I think a lot about Adam Curtis's hypernormalization and the process by which images and information kind of indoctrinate and shape perception and thus create reality. And the way that our current media environment is oriented, it doesn't even feel like it doesn't feel like an abstract theory or concept at all. You can feel it happening in real time as you hear things that you know not to be true, and everyone that I'm talking to right now, like my coworkers, my friends, my family, the world just feels so bewildered right now. There's this real feeling of confusion, of disillusionment, of really just not what's coming next. And I've always really appreciated cyberpunk literature and science fiction because I feel like in a lot of ways it helps us to understand how that hyperreality works, and also helps us to think through ways of resisting it and pushing against, and forging a more positive path forward. And so I'm wondering how you conceive of this current moment and how you conceive of the kind of hyper normalization of false narratives and ideas that's happening right now. I mean, your work really deals with the impact. I mean, particularly with your work in the Great Area Diorama exhibition, Red Pill, where we see this advertisement for this drug, and kind of the relationship between images and, making something false real. And how do you kind of sort through these ideas, in your practice?
Oh, okay. So in terms of the development of the movie, it actually, because also at the end when I decided to work on the long feature length film, this started in 2017, which I first got the French funding, and then by 2020 I finally have time to work on the film script. And of course, the pandemic hit, so I started writing the script pretty much during the pandemic and during the lockdown in Paris. And of course, what's happening with the pandemic actually does affect the script writing. Excuse me. By the way, excuse me. By the way, of course, the script right from the beginning, Yuki is actually the name of the virus. So in dealing with Yuki, the virus during the COVID-19, and looking at how the vaccine get developed by different pharmaceutical companies, the competition, the kind of secrecy of making the vaccine, the different privilege of who get the vaccine, who doesn't get the vaccine in the global political sense, it really affects the whole direction of the script. So in a way, the script have many different dimensions that I'm developing. I have long been informed by the cyberpunk, and later by the time I made Full Zero released in 2017, I did call it a cyberpunk science fiction movie. I think this involved any kind of critique and critic coding. Again, I think and critic coding in terms of against the kind of as a way to against censorship, as a way to avoid censorship is very important in the process of the hacker trying to rewrite the codes. And I think maybe in this sense, in my work, maybe codes and data really inform the whole basic direction.
I mean, it's so interesting that this project was begun, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in so many ways feel like it, and that's kind of one of the reasons why the work feels like a cautionary tale, because in a lot of ways it was prophetic. And so how has it been to continue working on this film, and has your approach changed at all? Or have you been informed by kind of the current state of our world and the pandemic crisis that we're still in the middle of?
Yeah, pretty much quite affected by it. I have rewrite a certain scenario. For example, as in the commercial, you saw the handshake. Before, I had never thought about handshake as a way of connection. So you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, even now, like we are not supposed to have handshake, right? We develop different way of greeting each other. Part of it is the handshake. It's like transmitting web data, right? It's kind of, well, it's not data, the viral transmission. So I sort of took that as a hint, for example. So at the moment, like the handshake become a very important action in the film in terms of appropriated by the corporation, and that's the way that you're gonna sort of exchange the web data, and but at the same time, during the exchange of web data, you could also easily get, the corporation, the Genom corporation in this case, can actually harvest or mining your web data through when you have this content. So a lot of these probably particularly come from the recent development in, during the pandemic. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Are
ahead,
you?
Go
Yeah. Hi, Julia.
Hi. I'm very excited to be here with you now. I love your work. It's really inspiring. But I was going to ask you, kind of like, and seeing this is really nice. This is the work that's in New York City. Is that correct? Okay. Because to me, it's almost like you're really approaching like data and system like as a medium. So as like a way to sort of transmit concepts and ways of sharing and exchange. Can you maybe talk about like, because just the kind of your approach to mediums and how you sort of see them sort of disseminating across each other?
Yes. Interestingly, because I'm really focused on making a film, and of course, right now we do use digital media, and we use any kind of software. I have been working with different 3D software, Cinema 4D, or in the case of constructing the landscape, as I say, using a game engine, Unity. So it's kind of like cinema capture. So in a way, for me, technology become available for me, or I can have access to different medium, then I would use it in terms of thinking about what could be kind of advance or upgrade myself to another level. I have also worked with, for example, in the development Yuki, I have also used a kind of biosensor, so you can actually I've developed this wrist with kind of sensor capacity that you can test the heartbeat, the blood flow, and actually it's like a collective game. And so you can actually, by collectively boost your blood flow, you can actually win the game, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's that kind of different medium for different project and different purpose. Recently, actually, I just got a release of a website, also kind of based on this this whole, at the moment I'm producing a lot of work, artwork based on the film. So, for example, I just released a website called Welcome to Bionet, which is a commission from the Up Project in London. And it's also a kind of collective game in a way. People have to play together. So I am interested in trying different mediums, and particularly with this recent sort of media technology, the update. And the only thing I haven't really tried is I still failed to create a virtual reality work. I am kind of hesitating about it. And at the same time, of course, a lot of my work probably pose in kind of going in the direction, but I still call it more like a all reality, instead of alternative, but it's ALT, more like a keys on your computer, the all reality. So this, yeah. So I guess just reflect back to what Wei just say in this kind of confusing time in a way. Yeah, I think it's proper to say that we are in a very confusing time because in the process of supposed to have certain kind of recovery or fighting back and thinking we are on the upper hand, but we are not. We still every day have to deal with a very confusing situation. So it's true, in this kind of time, then that's why when I start talking about Cycle X, when I start talking about go back to the farm or, working on the farm, that probably presents something very tangible, right? It's grounded, it's tangible. I just spent last weekend at a farm upstate New York, and it just feels so. It's healthy. Yeah, it's what we call entering into the recovery and regeneration. I'm working with many different people with different skills, different approach to the land, and so this is also a very interesting project. So it's for me, that's why, particularly for Gray Area Festival, I want to present two very different reality, right? Yeah.
Shu Lea, I'm glad that you brought up Cycle X because I wanted to talk about that a little bit too. And how did you get started with this project? I mean, your work. I always think of I of course think of you as a digital artist working in new media, film and animation and net art, and so to when I heard that you were working on this project related to farming, I didn't at first understand the jump, and so I was
It's
really
for real, right? Yeah, it's for real. Yeah.
So I'd love to know more about, how you got started with it, what really inspired you and made you want, and what inspired you to want to do something more tangible that's rooted in a practice that is much more analog.
Yes. During the time I lived in New York City throughout the 80s and 90s, so again, the 80s and 90s in New York was also a really tremendous time, particularly with the epidemic, the AIDS crisis, and but I think living in New York City is one particularly thing about, well, maybe many major cities have this tendency, people go away for the weekend. I usually got chance from my friends who have houses or houses upstate New York. So we would go always let's take the weekend outside of New York City. And this is always so rewarding, if you spend a bit of time outside New York during the weekend. So I started going to upstate New York and start again hanging out with sculptors, and they all a very dear friend of mine named Toby. He's a welder, a sculptor, but he actually started getting into farming, and in upstate New York. And when I start work, sort of we are very dear friend, and he does welding. He actually does welding for David Hammond's work, right? So it's like he always asks me oh, would you like me to weld something for you? I was like, I really have nothing to be welded together, because I'm totally doing digital. But finally, I really want to do collaboration with him, and then he was saying well, I grow too many garlic, I have so many garlic, I can't even sell it. So one year I actually wrote a grant proposal about how to use his garlic as an art project. This was back in 2002. I got a funding. I think the funding is called Challenge to the Field. And I sort of take the field as really the field, the farm, rather than the field as to media field. And proposed this project called Garlic Equal Rich Air. And so this was also the time back in the early 2000. This was the time that we are all fighting for having free access to the Wi-Fi. This is a whole long history of fighting for AO2.11 free access because, again, there was a time when the Wi-Fi started to make available and people are start signing it off. But at the same time, we say, we have to really see we can share the Wi-Fi to the people. We should not be paying for it all the time. So I kind of take the garlic, if someone have the garlic, everybody can smell it. I make this analogy between garlic and Wi-Fi, and so become like share the smell or share the Wi-Fi. So that became an art project that was shown at Venice Biennale also in 2003. And later in 2019 got revised by Rhizome.org in New York. And so we actually continue this project, and so anyway, so now we have this farmland called CycleX. It's a nonprofit land trust, and we could actually manage to do many things there, but it's a very slow process again, because of there's no funding, there's no particular, but it's a very raw place, but we call it like an open form laboratory. But the laboratory actually is focused more on farming. Yeah. So farming in the sense of food and medicine, farming for food, but food can be medicine also. So particularly at this time, right, we were supposed to launch so many different ideas last year, so everything got canceled. So it actually gave us some time to rethink about which step we are taking. Yeah.
What a cool, that's such a cool story. And I love to see, it's so cool to see how just like one, small and somewhat silly project with garlic grew into something that was able to serve as a really powerful metaphor, but ultimately grow into this thing that has enmeshed the whole community that you've brought up there to CycleX.
Yeah, we're gonna try to bring more people, and right now I'm working with mushroom compost and living architecture.
A little smelly, no?
Yeah, I know. But it will be good. It will be fine. In the farm, it should not be a problem. But yeah.
I have a question for you. Of course, you are a legendary net artist. You've been working and thinking about the internet as material for many years. And it, and also, and we were talking about your influences of cyberpunk, cypherpunk, et cetera, this moment is a really transformative moment for digital art in a lot of ways, or at least it's lauded to be by, for instance, the boom of cryptocurrencies and NFTs, of the different ways that rendering engines are made really readily available to users, how we've kind of left, and so kind of as we're, entering the cusp of Web3, I would love to just hear your take on this moment that we're living in, and how you think, and, the kind of relationship between the internet now and the internet when you first started working with it, and kind of what, and within that, like what you're excited about, or alternatively, what you're nervous to see come to fruition.
Maybe in a certain way, everything get recycled, right? We just have our 70s sort of pens coming back or something, So maybe the internet is coming back, bypass the internet. NFT is probably bypassing, could be bypassing the internet, I'm actually currently also working on some radio project, which particularly focus on Haitian space. And again, this is like beyond the 5G, so then you have the whole electronic magnetic field. At the end, for me, all these media technology is always about assets. It's always about how sometimes, a lot of times, that we thought that we have the space, but it is quickly being commercialized, quickly being monopolized. The net is the same situation. I think in the beginning, a group of artists, when we start using the net, that was the ultimate freedom. We appropriate all kinds of technical possibility. However, these days you cannot, work through the net without all the cookies embedded, all the, without any being tracked and everything. So for me, of course, the net is like the lost ground for us. The NFT, of course, is based on blockchain, which again, this is another whole story to debate about. But blockchain is not new. NFT is not new. In terms of we have also been doing different coins. We have always been different community, local community have been using different kind of alternative economy at a difficult time. For example, in Argentina during the whole during the economic crash in the 1990s, that's actually is where the Garlic project came about too. That using different object as a different coin. So right now we're talking about coin token, for example. So same as there is a whole history of alternate economy happening already. So for sure, at the moment with the NFT, well, actually, we've been talking about minting the garlic token the whole last weekend. So that's also quite appropriate. At the end, I'm not so. I'm quite open to all this development. Let me be saying that I look at it as a different phenomenon tend to happen here and there. It sprouts, and we're gonna see which one survive, or how people take on to do different thing with it. Certain way or channeling may survive. Certain thing may corrupt. NFT, of course, could easy collapse any moment, and so. At the same time, we're using it. So I guess it's more like in the early 80s when we started working with public access TV, for example, and there was a kind of motto saying like, use it or lose it, because that was like when public access start making available that you can start have the channel, because of the cable condition, and say, okay, fine. Then there's say, we have to use public access TV in order to get our message through. And if you don't use it, they will take away this channel, right? So so this is kind of my way of dealing with many things, use it or lose it. So if any channel, any access available to us, we use it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's, we talk a lot about the harms and the dangers and the inherent pitfalls of using this technology, but we don't always talk about, ways that we can harness it, ways that we can, repurpose it and, use the good without the bad. Yeah. As you said, use it or lose it. So that feels really, I don't know. It feels really good to hear. I would love, go ahead. Sorry, Julia, were you going to say something? Or I'm sorry, didn't mean to. No, what for a younger generation, who's born digitally native, who's growing up with 5G in their home, with smart devices, and who, what kind of advice would you give, or how would you want the internet netizen of today, born today, to engage with the changing network and to participate in a way that is generative, positive, constructive, anything, something like that?
It's interesting. Yeah, no, I'm dealing with like the kid, yeah, the friend has kid. They can only look at the screen, right? They just work on the screen. They only know how to do fingers through. Yeah. I don't know. I play ping pong with them. I was just like, how to take them out to the park and play ping pong, particularly during the pandemic, when you cannot do so much exercise. You say, okay, let's go play ping pong. I think it's by playing ping pong is the way that I feel like, yes, we had lost the capacity to dealing with each other in a physical sense. We have sort of our so-called social network is totally finger fucking, as we would say, and so we need to get back to more social activity in the way of physical activity, including physical exercise or physical closeness. However, again, we are talking about building any kind of community, any kind of network, but we have to rethink about what's the community building, what's the social network building, in a very different sense. Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left, but before we go, I just want to, I know that, as you're working on Yuki, you have been really clear to support and include folks of all different kinds of gender identities, and that kind of fluidity in the performers that you involve has been really important to this piece and to you. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that process and why that how that's going to manifest in the film.
Yes, particularly, in the e-trash field, we have a lot of transmutants and what I call the human and non-human. This is also involved with, not to talk about the biotechnology. There's been a lot of experiment in the hyper lab. At the same time, there's a whole different bio lab, web lab, or sort of more like DIY bio artists scene happening here in Europe, and I believe in America. There's certain channel in communication also. So these all point out to for the bio artists or these kind of DIY bio lab is always talking about like how can we take reprocess these technology, so in terms of DNA transfer sequencing, in terms of hormone gene modification, how could we appropriate this technology, but in a more human, in the kind of we understand how manageable sense. In this particular process, doesn't matter. So the artist working, for example, Chimera Rosa working on transplant, injecting the plant DNA to the own body. So we are always in this transitional period also because of the, we start talking about the kinship, as the kinship talk about. So we have to include many living creatures in our dialogue, right? So it's when I say transmutants, in my film, I include a kind of jellyfish human being combination, right? So all these are part of the process of the tech development that take me to this stage. And of course, the gender fusion has always been the topic of my work. I have always think the trans identity or transformation or transgression. This is all part of my area of study, and I still follow this procession. But again, maybe Yuki actually bring in more of that transmutant elements to the film. But this almost become quite a reality to us. If you think about what the biolab is developing, so if you get sick, you need a new heart, they would replace you with a pig's heart, right? A pig's heart developed from the cell. So we are totally, we are totally out of the cyborg era. We are now really transmutant, and all the vaccine, all the viral injection or infection that we have done to ourselves, we are totally transmutant. Yeah.
I love that as a metaphor, and I love that as a new terminology, moving past the cyborg and into the era of the transmutant. And who knows? Maybe the next year we'll get a transmutant manifesto or
Yes,
through.
yes, could be. Yeah, could be. Yeah, yeah. So that's good.
Sure, I think we're just about out of time, but I so appreciate you being here. This was really wonderful. I know it's really late where you are in Europe,
No
and so
problem.
thank you. We thank you very much for being here. This is wonderful,
Yeah.
folks. You can, if you had to, Yuki is currently in development. And there are lots of different ways that you can support the film. Check out our website, and we'll show you some different ways of ways that you can support, and check out other instantiations of this project as it has been shown in various places around the world. We're so excited to see how you keep going and see what the final film looks like.
I hope so. Yeah, maybe come back to show the film later. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't expect it before 2002-3. So okay.
Okay, I'm marking my calendar.
Yes, exactly. Okay, super.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye bye.